I'm here to tell you just about an idea. This is not a finished product or a service. So it's called Creative Patents, and it's a new way to think about how we can share technology for collaboration. So my name is Mathijs Koenraadt, and I've been an entrepreneur for the last 10 years. I've started a Bitcoin company called eCash, which is like a BitPay competitor, but since they have 20 million funding and we don't, it's kind of difficult to compete with them. But so I'm lately also trying to become a writer or write more about open source technology and decentralization and so forth. So this is also one of the reasons why I'm here to pitch some of the ideas that I have and to see what people think of them. Yeah, so I've been working in Bitcoin since 2013, since the first April spike in the price when it went to 265. I bought my Bitcoins and immediately it crashed to 80. And I thought, well, I have to get to know more about this. So, and then recently I got more interested in the blockchain technology behind Bitcoin. I thought it has a lot of applications. So in this presentation, I'll tell you a little bit about an idea for collaborative innovation using blockchain. So I'll tell you more about that. To explain that, I need to explain a bit more about the background for this idea. So a few years ago, I read a book called The Open Source Manifesto by Robert David Steele. I don't know if this is familiar with you, but it's a very good book. And then I'll tell you a bit more about the decentralized everything. This was a presentation or an article I wrote on the internet and got some attention. And then I would like to go to patent law and using the Bitcoin for collaboration. And I think it also has some market benefits, so I'll tell you a bit about that. So a few years ago, I was talking to a friend. I was doing a PhD on some cell research, very difficult. But I was asking him, so where did the researchers there used to, if they invented like a solution for example, for cancer cure, what would they do with it? Wouldn't they share it with everybody else just to get it out immediately, to find the cheapest medicine? And they said, no, you wouldn't do it because, well, there's many reasons. If you are a researcher and you invent a cancer cure, maybe you want to win the Nobel Prize, so you keep it secret. You don't tell the other researchers. And the same thing for commercial application. If you want to make money, you want to make profit of your inventions, you would want to protect that for some reason. That's why we've invented patents. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. But many things can happen. I've read an article once that some company had invented something to cure some disease, but they decided to publish their solution freely. And the problem was that commercial companies didn't want to exploit it because they couldn't patent it. So they thought, well, if we start selling this, everybody else will sell it as well, and you have a lot of competition at the beginning. And this was problematic to them. I've also, something that's bothered me for a long time is, I think in America, like Facebook or Amazon, they actually patent some of their software code. If you've heard of the Amazon one-click checkout idea, apparently they patented it. And I think in the European Union, you can't patent software code the way they can do it in America. I prefer that. I think it's wrong to patent software code simply because I think these kind of things should be, the faster you can reuse them is better. So the way I see it, this graphic should say something like a government, state, military, or a corporation. And the idea is that you have big silos that have their own innovation centers, like the banks here, the ABN AMRO Bank has an innovation center, and Rabobank has one. Now I'm sure the employees talk to each other, but there's a lot of inventions, information that we keep secret. And we use secrecy to make sure that our business or our organization has some competitive advantage over other people. But not everybody thinks in the same way. So Elon Musk, the founder of the Tesla car company, last year, July, I think, he released several patents of their company, I think involving the battery of the car batteries. The reason was that, by distributing that patent as an open source patent for free, that everybody else could start working on it and building it, he believed that would accelerate the technology, which is in his own benefit, because then he has better batteries faster than he could do on his own. And yeah, I read about Thomas Jefferson, so the patent law is about 200 years old in the United States, and Thomas Jefferson actually opposed patenting his own inventions because he thought, well, if I throw them out there, the whole the progress and the technological advancement will actually go faster. But here's the problem then. So if you're Elon Musk and you open source some of your patents, then this is great. But how can we collect all of these patents into a system where you can easily distribute it to everybody? And this is where I think the Bitcoin blockchain can play a role. So we have GitHub for code, yeah, the website where you can upload your code and keep a copy on your own servers. But where is a GitHub sort of thing if you want to make concrete, or if you need to conserve foods, or if you need to build airplane engines? Where can you find blueprints and commit improvements to those blueprints and share it with others or fork it? So this is essentially an idea for a GitHub for all technology, not just for software code. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Open Source Everything Manifesto by Robert David Steele. He's a former CIA employee, was a former spy actually, but he also, almost 30 years ago, he decided to organize a conference for the CIA to talk about open source intelligence. He had found out that, see, we sometimes believe that the most important information is secret. He found out this is actually not true. The most important information you need to know about, for example, Russia or Korea, is openly available in sort of in public databases. Because that information, but the problem is, organizations like NSA or CIA, they don't look at open information because they think that's not important. It's only the secret information is important. But it really isn't the case. Robert David Steele, he thinks a lot about his opinions that while people have been trying to work away from what he calls slavery, we try to free ourselves and become more of independent people. That in the industrial age, what happened was we started to concentrate people again in factories and large companies to essentially to exploit your productivity. Anyway, the point of this man is that if you let go of secrecy and you share your information, you can get to you can generate wealth faster. But that means as a whole, but also the individual companies would waste less money on defending their ideas, but they also have quicker access to better ideas. And this is also what I've been thinking about, that I think ideas should be free. Like a few years ago, someone asked me if I should sign a non-disclosure agreement on, he had an idea for a new website. And I thought, well, if I sign it and then I read about what it is, I first have to sign the agreement, then he tells me the idea. What if I had already thought of the same idea? Then suddenly I gave away my idea to someone else. And this is a problem, right? I don't want to do that. This is a graph by Robert David Steele. In his philosophy, open source only works if everything is open. So open source intelligence, open source software, open data. Because what happens if you have access to open data, but you still need to buy proprietary software or commercial hardware to use it or something like that. So I'm going to talk a little bit here about the open small business technology, open patents idea. So I think when we open source things, this is what in my mind is about technology, data, information, blueprints, I thought of combining this idea. So you have all this this data, and you want to distribute it, and you could use you can use something like a Bitcoin blockchain database, it's a decentralized database. To so I had a presentation at the Bitcoin meetup a while ago, which is essentially the idea is that decentralized systems like the BitTorrent network, you can shut down individual nodes, but you cannot shut down the network as a whole unless you shut down the whole internet. I think this is important because if you are able to distribute information in a way that it cannot be deleted or shut down by governments or by the courts, so you can shut down the Pirate Bay website, but you can still share files using the protocol. And so you combine the two. You store, you have open source information, but you don't want it to be shut down or blocked, so you store it in a different way. So I was talking also a bit about the what Robert David Steele says, that we centralized people's productivity. This is actually really the case. I was at a conference in Rotterdam called Geld voor de Toekomst, Money for the Future, and I think Ad Boer, you were there. He explained that in 2013, Apple paid almost 3/4 of its profits, so the real profits, after paying taxes to the shareholders. And that means that the employees who actually did all the work, their salaries are paid from the other 25%. This means that you're not really, so the idea is, can you change that? Can you change the way people organize themselves in such companies and be still productive, but that you would make, essentially, you would make 4 times as much money because that's your productivity, what it's really worth. So this, a little bit about the way patent law is intended to work or works at the moment is, so you come up with an idea, a new invention, and you can find a way to make money off it. Then you would like, so the whole idea of the patent law is that you get some head start, you get some time to exploit your ideas, your inventions, while competitors can't do it. There's a few questions. Does it really accelerate innovation? But there's another problem. Does it really work, the patent? Because if you spend a lot of time on a patent, and what if your competitor, who was almost doing the same thing, makes a small change, gets a different patent, and he's essentially doing the same thing, but it just looks different, or it has a different part in it. But then there's, yeah, I already talked about the code. There's a bigger problem. This is called the patent aggregators, or we call them patent trolls. There's a company in America with like hundreds of thousands of patents, and they pretend as if they are helping inventors get their ideas out in the market, while the reality is they use the ownership of all these patents to sue people in court. So they can essentially do the opposite. They extort inventors for money. And this is very wasteful. Why are we doing this? It doesn't make any sense. There was another case that surprised me. I've always thought it was strange that Apple and Samsung were in this battle over patents, that they want to block certain Samsung phones to be sold in Europe or in America. But then I once opened an iPhone and it actually contains Samsung parts in the iPhone. I think the CPU or something. And I think, like, what's going on here? Why are you suing your own supplier for something? This doesn't make sense. Why can't they just cooperate and sell even more, have like a more of a mutual benefit rather than competing each other to death? So as I was thinking about using a Bitcoin blockchain, I found there's some other projects with similar ideas called Open Patents and Patent Left. I think these are more focused on the legal license, that you can open source your technology under a certain public patent, and then so that means you can make it available to the public people, and that some corporation cannot, if they try to sue you for this technology, say, well, it's a public patent, so you can't sue me. It's to protect yourself. So the idea with creative patents is to go a bit step further and actually provide a platform where you can store your technology, your patents, your blueprints, or anything, and distribute it to the whole world. So anybody, you can simply download such like a Bitcoin blockchain software on your computer, and you get the whole access to the whole library. An example that I liked was if you're into the 3D printing world, you have a website called Thingiverse where you can download your mock-ups or models to, I think even in the beginning there was someone who had uploaded a weapon. You could print a plastic weapon and it actually fired bullets. And that's great for the 3D printing world, but you can go even further for literally for all technology, not just the things you can print. So it would be like a Thingiverse with a GitHub wiki combination. So the idea is, for why do I think this could work? I think the reason it can work is first, individual inventors may simply give their technology away for free and to the public, but then after a while, small businesses who they have a choice. We can ignore this patent library and don't do anything with it, or if we have like a specific product we want to sell, then we can use this library of other people's ideas to improve our own, and we would be able to we would be more competitive. Now, at some point, as more companies actually start to use this, start sharing this, they become a sort of a network of companies that share their technologies. And then there's companies who don't do that. So the idea is that the companies who use this principle become more competitive compared to companies who don't use it. And this would be simply a case of natural selection, that the companies who don't use it simply will not be as competitive anymore. And then from there, well, I imagine it could be some kind of a snowball effect. Yeah, so this is the question. Yeah, I was just talking about this. So if you're, why would commercial companies want to share their secret technology? Well, that's the point. The companies that do share will have faster times to market. They waste less time on reinventing the same thing, like reinventing the wheel. Why would every corporation invent the wheel if they have to do the same thing? You could share these base technologies, and then you could compete on service level or on insurance or whatnot. So the idea is that the consumer could win. Anyway, so this whole idea, I was thinking we could build a website which would be simply a user interface on top of this distributed patent library, where inventors can upload their invention, and other people, they can invite, like on GitHub, you invite people to work on, improve the ideas, share it, fork it. Maybe you can even have private repositories, or if that's necessary. But so the idea would be something like a Kickstarter for problems, where you come across a certain technological problem, you can pitch it. Or if you are a company in need for a solution for something, you can rather than showing off your finished product, like on the real Kickstarter, you would say, well, this is a problem that I have in my company or in my house, and I need to solve it. Who can think of a better solution that you could try to do that? So, well, that's, like I said, it's just an idea for not a finished product or a service, but maybe if anybody has comments or criticism or this is bullshit, or just let me know. I'd be interested in if you have some additional ideas to build on top of this, just to improve it. That's my presentation. So thank you very much.
I think it's great, but yeah. I'm missing the relation part a little bit in it, because when you want to share something, you rather do it with something you know. But maybe it can be the beginning where to meet other companies.
Yeah.
And
so
I
yeah.
When first you have to start a relationship, and then in your network you can grow all. But when you don't know someone, you just steal it.
Yeah.
So I'm missing a little bit the relation part.
The social.
Maybe your platform can be used as a start to start up new relations. Maybe that's what you.
Maybe that's I would just share the technology, and then of course, like on GitHub, sometimes you discover a new project and you can maybe contact the developers there, or the lead developer of it. Yeah, I think this is important. Yeah, you need to build the social relations between the companies. But this could be a beginning to facilitate, right? So
maybe in future also business models can be developed around this patent hub, as I make open patent hub or something, as you might call it.
Yeah.
So that you develop a new business model whereby you will have a collective effort and sort of monetization of the commitment of parties towards further development. And then maybe, because you maybe create a sort of hybrid model that the patent will not be 100% free, but it will be used for people who also sign up to this development, and maybe that you then also see how much capital is invested in the entire
like
development.
a crowd patent.
Yeah, so almost like a crowd, cooperative crowd
that's also
system where companies in time or money or, like for example, you mentioned like these pharmaceutical companies, the reasons for the patents is of course that for some medicine research they have to spend hundreds of millions and billions of euros for all these lab people working all over the world to work on the next viable pharmaceutical product. So maybe you also need some changes in law that the duration of the patent is also connected to the complexity of the development and the amount of money that the person who put in the patent request is really invested into this patent. I mean, by doing that, then you can sort of limit the sort of stronghold of the patent holder of the entire market.
Yeah.
I mean, these are not easy issues.
No.
Because how are you going to monetize? How are you going to decide on how much capital a patent is worth and how much a person or a company is really invested into developing this new innovation? But of course, I'm not here to answer.
No, but it's you're right.
Raising the questions.
Yeah, raising the questions. Yeah.
And the other thing I think is very interesting. I've seen some examples in the past which unfortunately I cannot reproduce now immediately. But in a number of countries, I've lived in Latin America and also in the Spanish world, some cooperative types of setting up factories or taking ownership of factories that went bankrupt or the management was completely incompetent. So the workers, together with part of the management team, decided to create a cooperative company whereby also the employees would share in the proceeds and the profits of the company. I personally feel this is a much more equitable model than the old industrial revolution type of capitalist, which unfortunately, maybe this is a bit of a blatant statement, but if you look at the economic statistics, the rich groups in the world seem to be getting richer, whereas on the bottom line of the equation, people are having an even harder time, and a lot of people are also caught up in a sort of white-collar or blue-collar sort of semi-slave-like environment. I mean, I've read about how things are in Hong Kong, and if you're earning like 600 euros a month, that is considered a good income in a very expensive place like Hong Kong, and I believe only 80% of the people have up to an income of 1,400 euros a month, which by European standards isn't all that high. And that is seen as the most successful example of a capitalist system. The top 20% have almost everything, and all these other 80% are starting with 400 euros a month.
Yeah, this is the point. You have like the 1 billion rich people in the world, and then all the other billion people, they're just as smart. So we need to use their ideas and innovations, but in their own benefit. So, I think you can do that by sharing and collaboration. Yeah.
So I think it's a great idea. Actually, we're working on something very, very similar, which I will talk about tomorrow.
Cool.
And I think the two extra pieces I will add to the equation, just exactly what you're describing, plus one is that internal reward mechanism. So just like GitHub, but whenever you push, make a push request, you're internally already receiving reward or equity, if you want.
Oh,
of
yeah.
this.
So it's like the hybrid model. You could become like a shareholder in the solution, or
Exactly. Which is priced by the whole network.
Oh, that's really great idea.
And the second thing is the social network component. So that it's all this is relying on a social network. So if I'm doing something, I have my followers. And so
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think the world is ready for something like this. So let's build it.
It's the next step of the internet, the open access of information.
Yeah,
the internet.
I guess internet of collaboration.
That 20 years ago, maybe people of my generation, we didn't have it. We go to the library and travel long distances and go to universities and faculties to improve our knowledge.
Okay. One more question.
I still didn't understand how the blockchain will be.
Oh well, yeah. I'm not the technologist here that invents that, but look, my idea was if you have this kind of information, you don't want to store it on a central server because it can be shut down, so you need to distribute it or decentralize it. And I think there's projects called StoreJ, that is a project to store documents. Maybe you can use something like that. Anything that works maybe like a BitTorrent system, just to keep it out of the hands of lawyers and the courts who want to sue you for whatever you want to publish. So, that's
you can use the blockchain also, firstly in terms of rewarding all people
who are
working on this project.
That's not my question, like how does that mean this kind of torrent system versus a blockchain?
no more of a, no, I mentioned a blockchain because it's irreversible, so you could store some information on it that simply cannot be removed. Incentive reward system, I guess.
I think he was very much thinking about the sort of time stamping.
Exactly.
And that functionality can be quite easily incorporated in the blockchain.
Something like that. Well,
and then you can prove the ownership. You can have these documents there, and then you more or less prove the sort of ownership.
Last question.
Since we are working on a similar idea and we meet so many people around the world that are working on the same thing, and we really want to cooperate on this same, like doing this together is part of your idea.
Yes.
Building the platform,
collaborate.
Yeah,
maybe
so
one of the first stock exchanges in the world, and sort of the inventor of the public company can play a major part in this, in developing a new corporate structure or a collective structure or a model on the blockchain and on the internet and with an IT infrastructure, but maybe also with a sort of legal foundation, because quite often this is ultimately, whether we like it or not, we can think as Bitcoin and developers that we're living on a different planet. Unfortunately, we're still living here and we still have to pay our bills with about euros or some other funny money. Otherwise, we get into great difficulties. We still need a nationality in the passport.
No, I think this, we're done.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.